Happy Friday, everyone. February 10th. I'm with David. We got the Friday 5 today as well.
Yeah, just wanted to start something off a little bit different today since we've been talking so much about the economy. So we found a video about jobs and generation and kind of the unique time in financial history we're at. So it's a 2-minute video. Bear with us, and then we'll share a little bit of thoughts on why we think it's impactful to the housing market.
Yeah.
They're also the smallest generation we've ever had. Between the large boomers leaving and the small zoomers coming in, we have a shortage this calendar year of 400,000 workers nationally. And we know what the inflow and the outflow from the labor market is because they're all here already. It's going to increase that shortage every year for the next 12 until it peaks in 2030-40 at an annual shortage of about 900,000. Hardwired in. Now, there's the millennials. We've talked about some of the positive attributes. It's only fair to cover some of the negative. Narcissistic, self-absorbed, arrogant, needy, still live at home, show up to work at the crack of Tuesday at noon for their first hour of work. The data supports this too, really does, for half of them. The other half have always done everything that we have always demanded. They graduated from college a semester early. They didn't go to Europe for a decade to find themselves. They went straight into the workforce. And because of it, they got screwed. When the financial crisis hit in '08, they were the last ones in the door, so they were first ones kicked out. Whether it's because the millennials did everything right or everything wrong, they missed out on 5 years on average of work experience in their 20s. Formative years they will never recover. They will always be behind. They are the least skilled worker cadre we have ever had for their age bracket, and they will be behind until the day they retire. And yet, the hope is still with them. Because they're a large generation. A large generation generates a large generation. The boomers generated, the millennials will generate whatever comes next. Which means in 10 years, when the millennials are entering their 50s and having their midlife crises, I can't wait for that, they will enter that investment-rich cadre that my generation cannot be because there aren't enough of us. And capital costs will start coming down finally. But more importantly, when their kids grow up, large generation generates a large generation. When those kids grow up, get trained into the workforce in the 2040s, we will finally get back to a labor structure that looks like what we remember from 2019. All we have to do is wait 20 years. This will fix itself. So if you're going to take any advice from me today, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow, hire and borrow. The hiring situation is the best it will be for 20 years. The financial system is the cheapest it will be for 10. Do it now. Don't wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months or 90 months. You have a decade or more to wait before conditions normalize.
I just want to kind of tie in my thoughts on what I think, Peter was kind of mentioning and hinting towards in the video. We're at a kind of a weird point in
Financial history.
financial history right
Yeah.
now. We've got one of the largest generations that are starting to sell off their assets, and it's opening up an opportunity. And we saw in 2021, 2020,
2022.
2022,
Yep.
millennials were the largest home purchasers
Yep.
in 2022.
43% of transactions in the U.S. were
40%.
purchased by millennials.
Millennials,
And
yeah,
on the flip side of that, boomers were selling the most,
by like 54%.
40-something percent as
Yeah.
well. I think they were really close to each other, 43 and 42. I forget
Yeah.
which was which, though. So the reason we bring that up is we've talked a lot about the economy and the jobs reports and where the Fed's at and how that's going to impact us moving forward. So, all Corey and I really care about at the end of the day is how do we find more home buyers.
Yeah.
And who's buying homes and things of that nature. So you've got boomers who are the biggest owner of homes. You've got Gen X in between boomers and millennials. Then you got millennials who are the biggest pool of people that came from boomers. And then you've got Gen Z, right? Those are the 4 main groups that are driving the current U.S. economy.
Yeah, who Gen Z's starting to dabble into the market, and I think this kind of gives them an opportunity because we know supply is so limited right now.
Right.
With the boomers starting to get out of the market, selling their homes, and it's not just real estate. I mean,
Right.
it's
It's
asset
all assets
classes.
in general.
Yeah, and we're starting to see quite a bit of a sell-off because they want to go into retirement, bonds, treasury bills. That's what they're starting to move towards, and they're consolidating some of their real estate portfolio as well. and it's so important, in my opinion, for my generation. So I thought I was a Gen X,
Yeah,
but
but
now I just
you're
found
a
out I'm a
Zoomer.
Zoomer,
Yep.
which I guess
Yeah,
I'm a
mixed
Zoomer.
feelings about.
Yeah, a little bit, but we really just want to drive. And I made a post about it, the importance of real estate. It is an asset class. I mean, it's the only thing that you can borrow debt
While it
while it
appreciates.
appreciates. And there's
Yep.
so many ways that you can leverage it as well if you want to start a business. A lot of even, parents who want to send their kids to college, they pull
borrow
out
money against their homes.
HELOCs to
Yep.
send their kids to college. And so I want to drive it into my generation, the importance of owning a home, because as we know, we live in a debt-based economy. And
Right.
so if you guys noticed at the end of the video, he said borrow higher, borrow higher, borrow higher.
Yep.
And so what he means by that is he doesn't mean go spend $5,000 on a Gucci bag and,
Right.
spend on your credit card. What he means is you got to buy up asset classes. And right now, we're kind of at a point where the generational curve is, from what he said, at the lowest it's going to be until that 20 years. And then we're going to get back to the 2019 where boomers were still on the market. They're not selling off a whole bunch of assets. And so if you're in my generation or millennials, when in 2022, whenever they were the largest home buyers in
Yep.
2022,
And probably will drive this year again.
yeah, it's important that you get into the either real estate, stocks. I'd say real estate's a little bit safer.
Yeah, real estate's the number one driver of the U.S. economy, no matter what. And because it's that secure asset that
Yeah.
appreciates while you pay it down, it's the single best way to appreciate wealth. Especially if you don't come from wealth, it can change generations to come
Yeah.
for your family by buying and borrowing and all of that. So, like Corey said, the important aspect is just to know the generations. As boomers move out, sell these houses, it's going to do nothing but open up opportunities, because we all know we don't have enough inventory, right?
Right.
So even as boomers sell houses, that doesn't mean prices are going to go down. It just means maybe the 50% of millennials that didn't buy last year but wanted to buy are sitting on the sidelines and can get in now. So even as they drive those the prices continue to appreciate, boomers continue to sell houses, it's going to be younger people that are going to drive the housing market.
Without a doubt. And I mean, that's what I want to tie into it is prices might not drop whenever
Yep.
boomers start to sell. Nobody can really predict that. If you
Sure.
can, you're going to make millions of dollars.
Right.
You're not going to be doing this. But what I can tell you is they're never going to stop printing money. They're never going to stop raising the debt ceiling.
Yep.
It has to. That is how the economy runs. It is a debt-based system. So
So you got to beat it with the one asset that can outgrow the debt as it
Yeah.
appreciates and you pay the debt down.
you
It's
leave
the-
it in a savings account, you're going to get nothing.
Yep. So keep that in mind when you're out talking to buyers. And, for us, it even drives home more of an important point that, technology is where it's at.
Yeah.
You have to have a company on real estate side, on mortgage side, on title side that's tech savvy, because as these younger borrowers, Corey's grown up his whole life with a cell phone in his hand, essentially.
I had a couple years of that.
Yeah, for sure. But that's what you're used to, right? And that's what you expect.
Yeah.
And I'm a millennial, and if I can chat with AT&T as opposed to having to call them, or I can chat with my bank as opposed to having to call them, or I can send a text message for services, that's something I want to do, because it makes life easier, and we're all about ease.
Yeah, and that's why
convenience.
we even started the Friday Five. I mean, we
Exactly.
post them on social media. That's where the new borrowers are gonna be.
Yep. And so you got to be able to
You gotta
spread your
adapt.
knowledge. You got to be
Yeah.
able to use that technology and attract them. So
Yeah.
that's all we really had. It's kind of a more philosophical talk than we've had recently. Rates are what they are. They're that jobs report from last week still hurting us, so we're hanging out in the mid sixes.
Yeah.
But we have an inflation reading next week. We hope that helps out from that standpoint.
Hopefully, it's still trending down, which
Yep.
I think
So
it will be.
keep your
so.
fingers crossed for Tuesday.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
We appreciate your
Appreciate it.
time.